In parts of the Philippines, daily life is clouded by the threat of violence. Over the past 30 years, clashes between rebel groups and the Philippine armed forces have become a feature of life. In certain rural areas, and particularly in the southern island of Mindanao, armed conflict and bomb attacks have forced thousands of people from their homes. The chronic lack of security takes a heavy toll on civilians. In the village of Pantukan near Davao, for example, a number of houses were recently burned down in an incident in which 3 people lost their lives. No one seems to know exactly who was responsible. The role of the International Committee of the Red Cross is to bring relief to civilians in times of war. Despite the difficult security situation, the ICRC works closely with the Philippines National Red Cross Society, the PNRC, together finding ways of bringing practical help and protection to the victims of violence.
The ICRC in Mindanao in particular are very much supportive on all activities of the PNRC, particularly on relief and dissemination, meaning there was no time that when we ask for assistance they deny. They always find it ways and means to support the Red Cross in Mindanao, particularly those who are facing, problems on insurgency.
Hand in hand with relief activities, the ICRC and PNRC organize regular sessions on the basic humanitarian principles underlying their work.
Ang Red Cross of Red Crescent usa.
Here in Pantukan, local people from the barangays or villages learn about the internationally agreed rules that should govern any use of force. Similar sessions are held for the Philippines Armed Forces. Books and leaflets, videos, lectures and discussions help to increase understanding and respect for international humanitarian law, the so-called law of war, and the need to protect and safeguard civilians.
However, ICRC must be remembered not only in terms of food and non-food assistance, for the ICRC does more than this. It does so by virtue of its mandate as enshrined in the Geneva Conventions.
The vast territory of the Philippines, made up of over 7,000 scattered islands, makes communication extremely difficult. It's a particular problem for prisoners who may be held in detention hundreds of kilometers from their homes. In the town of Zamboanga on the island of Mindanao, Nomina is preparing for the long journey north to see her husband, who's been in detention in Manila for over a year. She hasn't seen him since his arrest. The family can't afford the trip, but the Red Cross will cover Nomina's travel costs. She must first register and collect her tickets from the PNRC office in Zamboanga. The Family Visits program, run jointly by the ICRC and PNRC, helps security prisoners to keep in contact with families by organizing and funding visits for the poorest among them. Nomina sets off on the 30-hour boat trip north. She's traveling with her sister-in-law and 2 children. Over 1,000 kilometers away, Nomina's husband Eric is being held in Metro Manila District Jail. 130 security prisoners are detained here on remand. The hours pass slowly for the prisoners, who don't know when they'll be released or when they'll be brought to trial. The men receive regular visits from ICRC delegates. They check that the conditions of detention are reasonable and intervene with the prison authorities when necessary. Eric was a street trader in Zamboanga before his arrest. He's just received the news that his wife and family will soon be in Manila.
I received a letter. I cannot believe that my family is coming. I thought I was dreaming. I won't believe it until I see them here.
It's the end of a long and exhausting journey for Namina and the children, and it's an emotional moment when the family is at last reunited, if only for a few hours. Eric can't wait to touch the little son he hasn't seen for over a year. Namina is one of a group of 20 women who've taken part in today's visit. Over the past 12 months, over 180 such group visits have been organised. They're a source of hope and comfort for prisoners and their families, and a reminder that it will be possible to pick up the threads of normal life when the release date finally comes. When homes and property have been destroyed, food, clothing, shelter and medical care are basic requirements. This practical help is an important part of the ICRC and PNRC's work together, but it goes further. Because of security risks, certain areas are dangerous, even off limits to ICRC staff. Coordinating with the Philippines Red Cross at grassroots level helps minimize the danger. Albert Medroso, who works in Mindanao, takes this very seriously before he ventures into certain high-risk areas.
So before proceeding to the locality or to the affected areas, I usually coordinate with the Philippine National Red Cross because basically they are based in the provinces and they know the people. And afterwards, after coordinating with them, we also have to visit. It's a primary requisite with the regular armed forces of the Philippines, and if possible, we also include our coordination, if ever, with the other weapon bearers.
When volunteers from the local Red Cross branch take part in a training exercise, it's all too realistic. But providing emergency first aid in conflict situations is a traditional role for the Red Cross. More unusual, perhaps, is the new Caregivers Centre in Zamboanga. Students learn how to look after children and older people. It's an innovative fundraising project, and at the same time it introduces the students to the Red Cross Red Crescent movement. The Philippines National Society, founded in 1947, is one of the oldest in the Red Cross movement. The ICRC opened its offices in the Philippines in 1982. Today, the organizations work closely together across a wide spectrum. It's a rich partnership. The objectives are clear: to bring help and protection to some of the most vulnerable people in the Philippines who suffer the effects of violence in their daily lives.